Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out, as well as FowlLibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at FowlLibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. Zemo73 here, bringing you the highly requested Hungrybox Carlina list. This is the design that I used to tie for first place at the Wanderer event, and it was designed by, the core idea of it was designed by Mike Rance, and then he and I workshopped it for hours to kind of get it to what it's currently at. And man, is this deck fun. It is probably the quintessential Jeremy deck. It is tons of fun to play in Wanderer. You have tons of utility, you have tons of cool plays, you have good answers in the early, in the late game, in the mid-range. Yeah, and eventually sometimes the deck just becomes Vlad. So there you go. Obviously we're playing Belial and Carlina. We're playing Belial because we want access to be able to control the early tempo and keep ourselves safe from some of the more bursty decks. And we're really only using a few of his cards, to be perfectly honest. And then we want Carlina because of that will production ability, gets us to be able to do some pretty nasty stuff with some Wanderer cards that are really nice. Stone-based wise, we're playing 4 Magic Stone of the 6th Age, 1 Black Silence, 4 Ataroctia's Memoria, because this is a green-white-black stone, and then we are playing 1 of Ragnarok's Fiery Stone. The reason why we're playing the 1 of, it was a last-minute addition, and man do I love it in this list, is because of how many ways we are cheating stones into play with this deck. Even on turn 1, we're usually getting 2 stones. And so getting this early, even getting it off of even the first turn stone call because of the way we're doing it, is not a huge deal, and it just gets you so much value in the late game that it's well worth it. Going into the main deck, we're going to go through kind of the core of it. There's a lot going on here, and then we'll kind of go through the one-ofs. So we're playing 4 copies of Trow, because it's an activated ability that we can really easily do off of Carlina. Gets us a stone, which if it's a 6th Age stone, then recovers Carlina, and gets us access to the utility of our 1-drops. We're playing number 4, number 13, Anti-Magic. Very easy to get this deck to seal 4, and even seal 7 very, very fast, and so being able to control the game state that way as needed is very nice. Playing 3 Kaguya's Moonbeam Butterfly as one of the quintessential utility pieces for some of our bigger cards, namely some of the castles, or things like Virgil. Being able to pay 4 for Kaguya's Moonbeam, make it uncancelable with Carlina's God's Art, and then go get a Virgil from the deck is huge. There's a lot of utility that comes into play here. You really need to know your deck well and kind of know what you need for the matchup, but Kaguya's Moonbeam will usually get you there, and it's just a great card. 3 Magic Stone Research Institute. We were playing 4. I've swapped some things around here because it's not super great in the late game, but in the early game it's just great, so you want to see it a lot. 3 Magic Stone Research Institute because you can use Carlina on turn 1 to play this as your 1 card per turn, which is fine, and then it'll come into play, get you a free stone, and then you can call stone with your other ruler. So if either of those stones that you hit off the top is a 6th Age stone, you recover the Carlina, and then you get to go into your opponent's turn with like 3 or 4 will and 2 stones still available, not to mention all of the pumps that you're putting on your stuff. It's just crazy, and just generates a lot of value over the game. Also, early game being able to deal with your opponent's graveyard, which is nice. 4 copies of Prideful Rule. Not really much to say here. It is our best removal card and generates us token value to keep the pressure onto the board in the early game and deal damage later. 4 Lorites. We could probably go to 3 because of the utility, but I have found that just having 4 is nice. 2 Pharesia, Lady and Ataroctia. This card is amazing. I've really liked the fact that this card just allows us to very, very easily oh, I just realized I needed to decrease this. This card allows us to very, very easily keep our Brad safe, spot removal for big heavy hitter cards, turns every card in your hand pretty much, because a lot of this deck is green, into just incidental removal, and the quick cast nature of herself is great, and also her barrier ability is great, so you can just really keep stuff safe. In the Carlina matchup, especially if you can land a Pharesia and a Brad, usually the game's over. I found in most of my matches that the game was just over at that point, because I was always able to protect the Brad, and I was always able to cancel things. So I didn't have to waste the Brad on like trying to worry about keeping him safe, because I would just say, okay, cool, I'll just give him barrier instead. And then if they tried to do something fancy afterwards, then I just use Brad. So a lot of cool stuff there. This card is an absolute unit. I love it so much. 2, Witch of the Fallen Kingdom. The reason why we're playing 2 is because I liked having the ability to turn these into green witches later. And sometimes there are going to be situations where like being able to get, like if you can't get the if you can't get access to the Castle of Beatrice early, having multiple of these in the deck to be able to search with Trow and kind of steal your opponent's tempo when they try to search is really, really nice. Hence why we're playing 2. 4 copies of Garion, not really much to say here. A single copy of Mikage Rhea. She's really only good off the first Trow. Usually my first Trow is to go get a stone, get Mikage Rhea, play the Rhea, and then pitch the Castle of Beatrice to kind of start the deck's engine up. So beyond that, she really doesn't do much, hence why we're only just playing the 1. A 1-of Prideful Mage, because there is nothing sillier than sometimes your opponent just taps out, and like you just go use Trow to search up Prideful Mage and cancel it. Like, it's crazy good. A single copy of the 2-drop Abdul. The reason why I like the 2-drop Abdul is because it's easier for us to be able to get off of Kaguya's Moonbeam Butterfly. It's only a 1-of, we don't want to see it very often, but it is nice to be able to say, hey, I know you have a lot of enter effects. Here you go. Same with Zero the Kingsblade, just as a 1-of. Not useful in a ton of matchups, but in the matchups it is a good in. You want it in the main board. I think like this card plus Castle of Carlina combined, like Blue-Violet, it just wasn't a problem. I just didn't have to deal with that deck at all, and I played it a couple times in the Wanderer event. 1-of Wall of Terror. This is helpful. This kind of came into play again for the similar reason that Adoraktia, or that Pharesia did, but this is mainly so that we can get this Castle of Beatrice out of our hand. I found in the deck that once Castle of Beatrice came into my hand, it was kind of just dead. I didn't really have a way to get rid of it. And so having that 1-of Wall of Terror that I can search off of Trow just to be able to turn on Castle of Beatrice was really nice. A single copy of Exorcist Mage, again for that utility, just being able to grab it off of Trow is insane. And then we finish it up with 2 Virgils. Some of the other kind of utility 1-drops here, obviously, like I said, the 1-of Brad, 1-of Castle of Belial, because we can grab it off of Kage's Moonbeam Butterfly, 1-of Castle of Beatrice to be able to infinitely recycle your Trows, which is great. It also combos really nicely with the Pharesia, like we pitch a green card, a green Resonator like Trow or like Garion, and then we can use Castle of Beatrice to bring it back and kind of reload her so she can just keep the board clear. And then a 1-of Castle of Carlina. This card is insane, like absolutely bonkers. I single-handedly won matchups just because I was able to resolve this card. And this deck can do it in a lot of different ways, so you really don't need more than 1, and we have essentially playing 4 copies because of Moonbeam Butterfly. We just pay as a 5-drop, which we can pay 5 will very easily in this deck. So that is it. I absolutely love this deck. I think it's great. One thing to note is that like I totally felt comfortable swinging, getting my life above 2 grand, because the only cards that care about it is the 1-of Prideful Mage, so like meh, and the 4 copies of Prideful Rule. And as the game goes on, we have so much will that paying 3 for Prideful Rule is literally not a big deal at all. So feel free. That's the other nice thing about Rhea, especially if you do like the turn 1 Institute play, is like you play Institute, you flash in the Rhea, you pitch, you bring the Garion back, you go into your turn, suddenly you're calling a stone, and maybe Rhea's just swinging in the air for $1 grand, and then you gain $1 grand and you're at $3 grand, but you're sitting on like, you know, 1 million will. So it really doesn't matter. So that's one of the other reasons too that's kind of nice about this deck is Belial really isn't super necessary, but he provides a nice little linchpin, like a nice little buffer to the deck that really just helps it function very, very smoothly. So this is the deck. Let me know what you guys think, or if you have a different idea for what you guys have been playing in Wanderer. If you feel like wanting to try it out, give it a shot and let me know, or what other kind of 1-ofs you would want to try to fit into Hungrybox here. But thanks again for Mike Grants for working with me on this list. It was a ton of fun to play, and obviously very successful. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying, class dismissed.